Hey, this is Dave Molenda from Positive Polarity. And if you really want to learn how to level up your life, you should be listening to the Time to Shine Today podcast with my good friend, Scott Ferguson. Hey, let's level up, huh?
Time to Shine Today podcast varsity squad. This is Scott Ferguson. We're at episode 324 with my fellow Midwesterner, Dave Molenda from Positive Polarity. And it was such a fun conversation. Dave and I have so much in common. From the music we listen to the food we eat, we are meat people. But no, all joking aside, it was a fantastic, fun interview. He's a #1 Amazon best-selling author. There's a free book giveaway, so make sure you listen towards the end because you'll want to break out your digital note taker. Or I had like 3 pages of notes after talking here with Dave. This just helped me level up, help my clients level up even more. So without further ado, here's my really good friend, Dave Molenda from Positive Polarity. Let's level up. Time to Shine Today podcast varsity squad. This is Scott Ferguson, and I got my fellow Midwesterner. I mean, I'm in South Florida now, but it's always nice to interview the nice and huggy Midwestern people here, and that's what I got with my good friend Dave Molenda. He's the founder of Positive Polarity. He's a Midwest-based coaching and training firm that brings solid growth to companies from over 30 years of real-world experience, where he grew his own business to 10 million plus in annual sales before selling it. He speaks regularly around the country on topics that are designed to engage, and that's what I can't wait is to engage with my good friend Dave. And Dave, please introduce yourself to Time to Shine Today podcast varsity squad. But first, what's your favorite color and why?
Scott, my favorite color is orange because I got an orange Jeep that I can take the doors off, the roof off for the 3 days of summer we get here in the Midwest. So,
that's awesome. And it's also not only in your color wheel, it'll look good on you, but I see a lot of your marketing has the orange in it as well, correct?
Absolutely. Love it. Yep. Favorite color.
Stuck to the orange. I love orange, but there's certain shades of orange that but the orange you have is money, brother.
Awesome.
I love
Thanks.
Love it. So let's get to a little bit of the roots of Dave, of kind of like, where you started a little bit and then having a business that you built up to, 2 commas there, which is fantastic. And then kind of move it on to what you're doing, helping people really level up now.
Well, I'll tell you what, Scott, I got to start out by thanking you for this, but I also have to say I've never been called nice and huggy. So, I don't know where to go with that. So I'm just going to let it lay there for a minute.
The only reason why I say that, Dave, is I live on the east coast of Florida, right?
Sure.
So we get a lot of the Brooklyn, Boston, people on this. And me being Midwest, we hold doors, we smile, we hug, kind of thing. And they live on top of each other where they're from. So they want their space. So it took me, I had to adapt because I'm on the Eastern Seaboard. So other side of the state, Florida, where Naples and Fort Myers and Tampa, that's where our people are from. It's a whole different thing. But no, that's awesome. But yeah, you're huggy, man. Look at you.
Yeah, thanks. Huggable. Well, I appreciate that. I'll take a virtual hug anytime from you, Scott. So thank you. Absolutely. No, actually, it's funny. Born and raised in the Midwest, you start early. Most of us, I mean, we started early as entrepreneurs as, 9, 10-year-olds. And so it just was natural to sell something, to try and build something. And, so I started a company in the 90s and grew it to 22 people from $0 to about 10 million in annual sales, and then sold that. And then I am coaching now, practicing, helping people learn the formula that I used to be successful back then. So having a great time and honored and excited to be on the show.
That's excellent. So what kind of company you won't go too deep, but
it was construction products. We were in the construction industry, so we were selling construction products. And we had a lot of clients and had a lot of repeat business, but it was pretty cutthroat. So it was really, we had to do a lot of value adds on the back end. So That's what we focused on.
There's a lot of adapting and overcoming and shifting in that world. That's for sure, man. So
there is. Yep. And you know what? Pretty much every business that I've been involved with, there's, very few people that if you did it this way 5 years ago and you're still doing it this way 5 years later, you're probably behind the curve. So, that's everything is changing pretty rapidly right now.
I love it. So let's take us into where you kind of started in your coaching journey and consulting journey and speaking journey. Like, how did that start really kind of come from, because very few people that I know come kind of from construction kind of products into the coaching world. So
absolutely.
How did that happen?
Yeah, 2008 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, our building permits went down about 80%. So you can just imagine if you had a customer that was 80% of your business and they said, goodbye, Scott, today's my last day working with you. So we had a significant drop in sales. And at that point, we realized I made this conscious decision that if I keep my customers in business, they'll keep me in business. And so home builders, remodelers, architects, all the trades, we started to train them on how to stay in business, how to market, how to sell, all these tenets of the business that we typically have not had to worry about pre-2008. Mm-hmm. So from 2008 to 2012, when most people, either went out of business or retracted, we grew 47%. And we grew because we were keeping our people in business. And so at the end of that, I said, I love doing this coaching. I love this training. So I sold my business and started Positive Polarity.
I love it. And wait a minute, you went through a hard time or a challenging time in 2008?
Yeah. No, yeah, it's the only one, Scott. I know you didn't have that problem.
Right.
Detroit was fine. Everything in Michigan was great, but your neighbor your neighbor on the other side of the pond here, we had it a little bit rougher. So no, it was tough. We managed. So.
The name Positive Polarity. Let's dig in. Let's unpack that a little bit.
Yeah. So we basically, I sat with a marketing firm, and I believe it was either margaritas or Coronas, but there was something definitely involved there. And I really wanted the word positive to be in there. I'm a positive person. I think that people are attracted to positive people. And so we started with positive, and we just kept building on that. And I wanted there to be motion. I wanted there to be some kind of movement. So polarity is the word that we kind of built that. And the cool part about polarity is actually the opposite. It's the opposing way of doing something. So as a coach, I get to challenge people on, hey, are you sure that this is the right way to do it? Have you considered something else? So it actually worked in two ways. The positive and the polarity both worked out really well.
Love it. So do you lean coach or consultant, or are you a coach-sultant?
It's so funny. There's so many words. There's mentor, coach, consultant.
Sure.
There's all these words. I look at it. I'm not bright enough to know the difference between any of these. I just find somebody that needs me to come alongside them and help them. And, they're great at their craft. Scott, most companies are great at what they do.
Sure.
They struggle with how to treat a customer. They struggle with how to treat a team, how to integrate those two together. And that's basically where I come in.
Oh, you kind of marry those two and level them up. That's beautiful. So when you're starting, you work with companies more than individuals, or is it kind of a mix of both, David?
It's usually companies. Yeah, it's usually companies that want me to get in. And usually once I get in with one thing, they're like, hey, can you do this? Can you do this? I mean, so it gets to be a wider expanse than probably
snowball, right?
Most people. Yeah. And so many people tell, people listening to your podcast, they've been, told niche down, niche down, niche down, niche down. I'm not here to say one way or another. I just know for me, my personality, in my disc assessment, it says I get bored easy, Scott. So when I was niching down, I was getting bored. So I enjoy being, the person that they come to for a variety of things outside of just the business piece.
You and I are brothers from different mothers, brother. Because that's what I was. I had a former coach. I still love her, but she really niche. I'm like, wait a minute, man. I'm leaving so much of my value to help people on the table. Just because we love people. You and I love people. So when you're starting to work with whether it's a CEO, CFO, or the human resource, whoever brings you in, is there any secret sauce, if you don't mind sharing there at Positive Polarity, that during that discovery, maybe to help them find their initial blind spot of where you're going to start?
Sure. Yeah, I tell you what we use right now, Scott, is we do use a disc assessment. It's a huge tool for me to understand them. If you want to change or you want to move directions and you don't know where you're at right now, you can't. It's really hard to change. So we start with understanding yourself. And I know that sounds kind of like we're sitting around a campfire with a guitar, but it's one of those things that if you don't know yourself and you don't know your strengths and you don't know your weaknesses, what motivates you, it's really hard to move that needle forward. So we start there, and then we tend to get that whole team involved. If I'm working with a sales team, we get the whole team to do the assessment, and then we just start to use the assessment as a tool to be able to improve whatever they're struggling with. And usually they're usually small course corrections. I don't know, Scott, about you and your experience, but most entrepreneurs, they're off by a few degrees.
Right.
And, and we have a house in San Diego. And so if you leave Wisconsin and you start heading towards San Diego, and if the pilot decides to do a 2 or 3 degree course correction, you don't feel it until you land in LA, which is a painful.
I was just going to say San Francisco.
2.5 hour drive down 5 from LAX down to San Diego. So, that's what's cool about it is small course corrections are usually palatable to an entrepreneur and the business, and usually pretty easily implemented.
Love it. And so when you're working with whoever you're kind of initially speaking with, and you're really building that rapport, whatnot, and digging deep and unpacking, is there any good question that you wish they would ask you but never do?
Yeah, you use the word blind spot, and my next book I'm working on is on business blind spots. And I think that that's really a great question that people would ask, even everyone listening, is what is my blind spot? And again, you don't know what you don't know. So I encourage people to, find somebody on your team that you trust, jump on a peer-to-peer type of advisory group, get a coach or an advisor, counselor, whatever word you want to use. But we as entrepreneurs have business blind spots. And if we don't know what they are, some of them are very detrimental. Sure. You think of Blockbuster, what a blind spot to think that Netflix wasn't going
50 million, man. They could have been done and had the streaming service of a lifetime, right? Wow.
And I just imagine that room full of stiff, board members sitting in there, and a guy comes up or a girl comes up and says, "Hey, you guys ever hear this Netflix thing?"
Right.
And they're all like, "Oh my gosh, that's nothing going to work," And that's the blind spot that I run into quite frequently is, that's the way we do it around here, Scott. And ask Radio Shack, Sears, Kmart, all these dying dinosaurs that if you didn't acclimate, what happens to them? So that's the question I wish they would ask is, let's start out by saying, what's my blind spot? What am I missing here?
Love that. So when you're going into a company, and I'm going to kind of learn from you here now, because I'm dealing with it in a couple different ones where, the CEO might bring you in, they hear about you through their underlings or, their strategic advisors or whatnot. And they're like, we bring Dave in. And you mesh with the CEO great in his first and second in command, but then they send you to sales, to really help them level up. How do you handle, because the salesperson's been like, I've been in sales as well. I can get egotistical. I'd be like, well, how do you handle that person that is going to be resistant to change so they don't bleed that poison into the people that are maybe under them?
Well, and that's a great question. That again goes back to the assessment. If somebody has an assessment and they answered some questions, and on it says, that you have an ego problem, it's way easier, I think, Scott, if I have an ego problem and I report to you and you come to me and say you have an ego problem, I get defensive, my wall goes up, and I start to defend myself.
Absolutely.
That's really a hard way to do it. But if you said, hey, I want you to take this assessment, and then I want this third party guy to hang out with you for a little bit, and then all of a sudden you look and you realize the way that if I go, Scott, I answered these questions a certain way,
right?
I got an ego problem. What am I going to do? If we help them discover it on their own, it's way more effective than us trying to tell them. That is
freaking awesome, Dave. Like you're putting the onus on them in a sense to say, listen, man, this is laid out. This is what it says about you. You're not picking on them saying, oh, you know what? You got a problem. That's why you're not performing. They actually see it. And then you maybe ask the powerful questions to help them have that light bulb go off the level. Man, that's awesome, Dave. So Dave, what do you feel that maybe your strengths are?
Yeah, I know, like in my strengths finders, positivity is one. Connecting. I love connecting people with other people. I love being positive. I love to see an issue. And again, I help somebody with their blind spots. If they really say, hey, what am I doing here? At first I'll help them through that. But as we go and develop, I say, Scott, I know what I would do, but you tell me, what do you think we should do?
Right.
Rather than them getting, addicted to somebody else fixing their problem, we have to get them self-sufficient. So at first I'll help them, but soon after that, I'm like, Scott, I think I know what I would do, but you probably have a pretty good idea down in your gut what you would do. So let's explore that a little bit.
Yeah, and I love that you're doing that and not giving them what your answers are, because they don't feel like in control. If they come up with it on their own, the control is there. I'm using the word onus again. The onus is on them to perform, and that's where I'm strictly a coach, because I'm blessed to coach a lot of C-suite, a lot of high-level celebrities, professional athletes, and stuff. And it's like they forgot more about their business than I'll ever know, or really, frankly, care to know. And so they want me to put on the consultant hat. I'm like, listen, you're paying me X amount. Do you mind me taking X amount of dollars out of this to give you my opinion that you're probably already going to know? You know what I'm saying? And I love that the way you worded it. I'm going to re-listen to it. I know what I would do, but tell me what you feel that you would do. I love that, Dave. That's perfect, brother.
And the reverse, though, is like you said, from a professional standpoint. I mean, I think Michael Jordan and Tiger Woods are two of the best athletes that were ever out there. But think of all the coaches that Tiger Woods had. He had people analyzing his swing, analyzing his grip, analyzing his mind. I mean, if you don't, as an entrepreneur, have somebody, a coach, a significant person in your life that you can trust, that will help you with those things, you're going to struggle. I mean, business is challenging enough the way it is. Why make it that much harder? And so I think that coaching is really a huge plus to entrepreneurs. And again, if you're listening and you don't have one, that's why Scott's here, to be able to help you. And that's why I'm here, to be able to
connect you to Dave on that. That's
all I'm doing is helping you with your swing. You don't know, like Barkley, that was probably the worst swing in golf. I mean, oh my gosh, that's so bad. And he knew that he had it, but somebody had to say, hey, Charles, I think you got some issues here. That's what we do, is we look at the business and we say, hey, have you thought about this? Have you considered that? And then we're off and running.
I love it. So if I'm out at a networking event, pressing some flesh, meeting some people, I'd love to take people one-on-one. I don't work rooms. I kind of see who I want to mesh with. I'm more interested in their story than me telling them mine. But what kind of things might they say? What kind of verbiage might they use to make them a really good referral to you?
I mean, it's interesting. I'm in the same spot. I like one-on-one, and then I like to ask questions about the individual. I mean, I struggle with, someone walking up to me with a half-inch of business cards. This happened once. A guy that I never met before walks up to me with about a half-inch of business cards, Scott, of his. And he said, hey, I'm Joe from whatever his name was. Would you mind handing these out to all your friends? And it was like, oh my gosh, I don't know you. I don't trust you. There's no connection here. So, I'm trying to I look at it, how can I help somebody in the room? And usually once that starts, then they're like, so what is it that you do? And by then the relationships already started to form, and they're connecting with somebody and a coach or whatever. They don't even know it yet. So
I love that you say that. I mean, I get it on LinkedIn now. LinkedIn's like the new networking room where they just get bombarded. Look what I can do for you. And I finally got fed up, Dave. I'm like, is this the way you build business relationships? That's my reply. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I'm sorry, I don't believe in that. If you come to me and want to connect and have maybe a quick Zoom or something, and then I get it, man. So have you seen the movie Back to the Future?
I have not.
You haven't? Okay. So there's this dude, he gets in a DeLorean, he goes back in time. And he changes a few things and his life gets better in the future. But I'd like you to go back to the double deuce, the 22-year-old Dave.
Okay.
What kind of knowledge nuggets might you drop on him? Not to change so much anything, because you've lived a kick-ass life, right? But to maybe help him level up, blast through, maybe just a little bit quicker.
Two words that come up to me in my mind, Scott. One is empathy, and the other is vulnerability. At 22 years old, I was a punk. And, I thought I knew everything. I thought I was everything. And the reality is the older I got, the less I knew, less I knew about myself, So I got to a spot where I would love to say, hey, 22-year-old Dave, be empathetic for other people. Consider other people before yourself and be vulnerable with people, because as a leader, if we want vulnerability on our team, we have to lead with vulnerability. Right. And if we're not vulnerable, if you don't have a vulnerable team right now, if nobody's talking, nobody's, sharing, it's probably because you as the leader aren't leading with it. Because if I say, hey, Scott, tell me your deepest, darkest secret right now, it's way harder for you to do that unless I said, hey, Scott, I'm going to tell you mine, and then we're going to talk about yours. So if you can't lead with empathy and vulnerability, you're going to have a really tough time having a successful team.
And I love that. And great leaders are coaches of professional teams. I was lucky enough to sit in a certain Major League Baseball team's office and watch their manager and their GM take advice from their strategic partners at the table and really care. And they won the World Series that year.
Cool.
Right. So that's right. I mean, you have empathy, vulnerability, and basically, if you don't know something, get your asking gear, right? Ask for that. I love that, man. So how does Dave want his dash remembered? That little line in between your incarnation date and your expiration date, the life date and death date. Hopefully it's a way down the road, brother. But how do you want your dash remembered?
I like the 6 words of, and they lived happily ever after. I mean, to me, it just makes sense to be able to be happy right in where you're at. And I've learned that, there may not be a tomorrow, there may not be a 10 minutes from now. And if I'm always looking ahead to be like, oh, I can't wait till I get, I can't wait till I become. A lot of people never get there. It's great to have dreams and goals.
Sure.
For it. I just am learning for myself to be totally 100% present right here. Like right now,
thank you.
You know what, Scott? There's nothing else in my world except hanging out with you.
Yeah. And I can feel it. It's genuine too. Because so many people have a foot in the future, a foot in the past, and they piss all over the present, right? It's like, that's what they do. And I love it. It's like, I do the analogy, and a lot of coaches do it, of sitting in a car. The rearview mirror is small for a reason. It's a great place to visit, but don't make a home there. The dashboard's big, but you can't get anywhere without being present in the car, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Right on.
I love. So what do you think people misunderstand the most about Dave?
For me, they probably misunderstand long blonde hair as
I was gonna drop a question later about that.
It's fine. I mean, it's everybody has their thing, and I enjoy long hair, and I think people sometimes they don't take you serious. Full disclosure, you want me to be vulnerable. I never finished college. I started, never finished it.
Me neither.
And people are like, oh my gosh, where did you go to school? Not so much anymore, but boy, in the 90s and stuff. And that was like, huge.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what? I spent my time, I've done it rather than read about it. So if you want to coach that's done it, that's great. If you want to coach that's read about it, that's fine too. So you pick which one you want. And I always ask the question when people ask me about my background. I say, hey, if you had a brain surgery today and you had a choice of a guy that has read every single book on brain surgery, never done it, but he's read every single book, or you got a guy that's never read anything on it, but he's done 1,000 of them, you tell me which one you're going to take.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And if you want the guy that read, then hey, you know what? We're probably not a good fit. So that's how I look at it.
Dave, what keeps you up at night?
Caffeine.
Me too. Sometimes I love it.
It's the only thing, that's it. As I sleep like a baby, other than that stinking caffeine. So I can't drink it too late in the day, or I'm done.
I love that you brought up your hair too, man. Because I looked at LinkedIn, I was like, "Where's this cat from?" I thought you're definitely going to be a left coaster, right? And,
exactly.
And like you mentioned, San Diego is my favorite city in the world to me. I was stationed there. Before we go downrange to Iraq or Afghanistan or wherever we were going, we'd hang out in La Jolla at the Sunset Cliffs, and that's what we did. And we had family gatherings there. That's awesome, man. So,
hey, thank you for your service, by the way.
Appreciate that.
That's awesome.
Thanks, man. So, what is Dave's definition of a life well lived?
Again, I go back to what we talked about. If you're vulnerable with people and empathetic and live in the moment, I don't know what else there is.
Love it.
Because I've lived with stuff. I've lived with stuff. We all know stuff doesn't do it. The boy who has the most toys wins. That bumper sticker doesn't do it. I mean, there's so many bumper stickers that just don't do it. For me personally, I just want to enjoy right now. Because if this can't get any better, like this can't get any better. Now, I could say maybe if I was in a pool with a cocktail doing this, it might get a little better, but I mean, it's 80 degrees, it's sunny, and I'm hanging out with you. What else is there?
And you're going to come down here in the winter. We're going to rock some stages, man. You can come stay and have a good time, brother. So
Absolutely.
Time to shine today, podcast Varsity Squad. We are back, and I got my friend Dave Molenda from Positive Polarity here. And Dave, you and I are going to meet one day and share some brain grenades and have a good time. And we'll talk about each one of these questions, maybe for an hour each. But you have 5 seconds with no explanations.
Okay,
they can all be answered that way, brother. You ready to level up?
All good.
Here we go, Dave. What's the best leveling up advice you've ever received?
Be vulnerable.
Yes. Share one of your personal habits that contributes to your success.
Reading.
And so, speaking of reading, if you see me walking down the street, like Fergie, man, he looks like he's in his doldrums a little bit. Other than Growing on Purpose, what other book might you hand me to level me up?
Wild at Heart by John Eldredge.
I've heard of it. I haven't read it yet. Is it John or Josh?
John Eldredge.
John Eldredge? Okay. Got it. Write that down, Donnie, please. Okay, perfect. What's the most commonly used emoji when you text?
Smile with sunglasses on.
Love it. And don't lie to me on this one, brother, but if you could stay one age physically for the rest of your life, keep the knowledge you've garnered and continue to gain wisdom, what age physically would you stay for the rest of your life?
22.
Thank you for putting a 2 or a 3 on the front. Now I know you're truthful. I love it. Nicknames growing up?
Oh my gosh, none I can share in the air.
Awesome. Chess, checkers, or Monopoly?
Oh my gosh, Monopoly.
Awesome. Go-to ice cream flavor?
Chocolate malt.
Oh, chocolate malt. My God. So there's a sandwich called the Long Locks Molenda. What's on that sandwich? Build it for me, brother.
Oh my gosh. There's a ton of salami. There's a ton of ham.
Dude, we're hanging out.
Oh my gosh. There's a ton of meat. And then cheese. Butter. That's it. And bacon. Absolutely. There's no veggies. Veggies are not for sale.
I love it. No. Favorite charity and or organization you like to give your time or money
to? Favorite Children International.
Thank you. And last question, you can elaborate on this one. I'm very interested in your answer on this one, but what's the best decade of music? 60s, 70s, 80s, or 90s?
For amusement, 70s.
No, music.
Oh, music, 70s. Oh my gosh.
Awesome. Absolutely. Who's your go-to band of the 70s, brother?
Pink Floyd.
Really?
No question. Yes, yep. Best band ever.
May I ask your age?
57.
Are you really? Dude, I thought you were 40. I just turned 50.
Thanks, buddy.
So we're like, my lady's 57, and like people that keep themselves together, they look like you guys do. That's awesome. So
I was born in 64. So I was born in 64 for anyone that doesn't believe me. Do the math.
Okay. Love it. Who was your go-to band other than Pink Floyd? Did you have another one?
My top 5 are Pink Floyd, Boston, Kansas, Styx. I mean, it's all that genre. And then
we're definitely hanging out. How about Rush? There you go. How about the Eagles? You jam with the Eagles?
Absolutely. I've never been to their concert, but I've been to all the other concerts. I know.
Dude, Hell Freezes Over. They're in 94. Their opening venue was Jack Murphy Stadium in San Diego, man. And my dad took me in 77 when I was 5 years old, right? To see them. And I was like, man, this is cool. Because my dad used, he's a big security guy, and he was like really good friends with Seeger and everything. Nice. Anyways, but he took me to the Eagles, and I was like, oh, it just always stuck with me. And then I just remembered, Don and Glenn, remember when Don's like, well, we'll get back together when Hell Freezes over. And they came out, the dude, best concert, because they all had their solo careers behind them with Henley, Fry, Joe Walsh. And so they played their solo stuff along with the E2. It was best concert, hands down, ever. Awesome. I actually had my buddy, he builds concert t-shirts, right?
Oh, cool.
From any concert ever. Right. And so I had to build me one I have. I should have wore it for you there. That'd been awesome. So, Dave, how can we find you, my friend?
Hey, find me on LinkedIn or find me at positivepolarity.com.
And let's talk a little bit about your book, Growing on Purpose.
Yeah. So again, it go back to there's three parts of a business. That's the product or service that you provide. Then there's a team that provides it. And then there's a customer that buys it. The focus of the book is on the 2 and 3, strengthening your team and improving your customer's experience. If you do those 2, profit is a guarantee.
Love it. I love it. And squad, we're going to do a book giveaway on Time to Shine Today's Dime. The first one that just puts long locks. That way I'll know that you listen to this. Long locks in any, from LinkedIn, Pinterest, Instagram, any of our social, when you see this drop, put long locks in there. And I will get a signed copy on Time to Shine Today's Dime. If you don't mind just taking care of postage, Dave, that would be awesome. If not, I can.
I'll do it all. I'll pay for it all, buddy.
Oh, my man.
Hey, I don't know if some people are envious of long hair and some people are judgmental.
No, I think who cares? That's what I have one New Year's resolution, or actually 2, that I make every year. 1, make someone smile every day, right? And 2, unless I've hurt you, offended you, disrespect you, I give 0 what's about what you think about me. I don't.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So living that way, I'm just like, I love everybody, brother. I say love your guts all the time. And that's I actually mean it. So that's awesome. So Dave, do me one last solid and leave us with one last knowledge nugget we can take with us, internalize, and take action on.
Well, I tell you what, I am just all about the blind spot right now. So if you have never asked anybody about your blind spots, I would find somebody that you trust to ask them about that, because it might be holding you back. It might be holding somebody else back. It's most likely doing damage to something in your life. So it's really cool to get free and to understand your blind spots. And then you have a clear path on how to fix them.
That's awesome. And squad, we literally just had a free masterclass from my good friend Dave here, who really made a conscious decision to help keep customers in business through the darkest of times. And he says that if you keep customers in business, they're going to keep you in business. He knows that a good coach uses a great assessment like the DISC assessment, to set up plans for the seasons of change that come across your plate, to start to understand yourself, your weaknesses, and your strengths. He believes in small course corrections. So like we like to say, inch by inch, it's a cinch. By the yard, it's hard. Don't try to fly that airplane 1 degree off, because you're not going to get there. That's what someone like my good friend Dave will help you or your company make the specific corrections. He's a total go-giver. He's planting trees, my friend Dave here, that he's probably never going to sit in the shade of, and he's going to tell you when you work with a coach to ask them what they, to help you find your blind spot. And a great coach is going to get you there with a solid assessment and powerful questions. And he believes that the more you help, the more that will be reciprocated. Dave doesn't live a life for the toys, for the boys and whatnot. He's really interested in your story and help you get to where you want to be. He's going to remind you to have empathy and vulnerability and also live in the moment. To take a phrase like yesterday's history, tomorrow's a mystery, today's a present, right? It's a gift. So use that gift. He's going to remember as someone that lived happily ever after. He's someone that's done it. He might have read about it, but he's also done it. He wants you to do the same thing as take action. And his 3 spots of product, team, and customer are in his book, or the first 2 really are in his book. But I want you to get the book, pick it up, and leave a review for me also, whether it's on Amazon or on our site where you get it from. And if you're really working with somebody, again, blind spot is huge. Ask someone you trust. Someone that's going to give you constructive feedback about your blind spot. And that will help you progress, level up, and move forward. That's what my good friend Dave does. He levels up his health. He levels up his wealth. He's hungry, yet he's humble. He's earned his varsity letter here at Time to Shine today. Dave, thank you so much for coming on, brother. I love your guts.
Absolutely, man. You did it in 3 minutes. It took me 30. So you are a rock star.
My guy. We'll chat soon, my friend. See you.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks so much for listening to this episode of Time to Shine Today podcast. Proudly brought to you by Sutter and Nugent Real Estate Excellence, who can be reached at 561-249-7266 and online at www.sutterandnugent.com. If you are a business owner or professional who would like to be interviewed on Time to Shine Today, please visit timetoshinetoday.com/guest. If you like this episode, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcasts. There's a link in the show notes to our website. Also there, you will see our recommended resources. We hope that you will support our show by supporting them. If you like what you've been listening to, it'd be great if you could just give us a 5-star rating and tell your friends how to subscribe while you're at it. I'm your host, Scott Ferguson, and until next time, let's level up. It's our time to shine.